Structuring inharmonic spectra in electroacoustic music. 2. Frequency shifting. I hope that you are listening to this after part 1, as I will not be repeating some of the material I presented there. As the examples in part 1 have shown, pitch compression can create very interesting, evolving sounds that change in different ways over the course of their durations. Because of the human ear's poor response to low frequencies, since the inharmonics are squeezed into a specific area, they are more useful in high registers. Frequency shifting offers a method that is more appropriate for low tones, but it creates a shift in focus. Before getting into this, we need to have a better understanding of harmonic partials and how they work. It is a fundamental fact of musical perception that harmonic partials of a note fuse into a single pitch and are perceived as the tone color of the sound. It is remarkable that we don't have a term to describe this, and I propose that we call this spectral or timbral merging. All timbre identification depends on understanding this quality, and all timbral experimentation depends on exploiting that quality in different ways. Spectral merging is not to be confused with spectral fusion, which is the morphing of one sound into another. This requires that each of the sounds have a timbre that is identifiable and distinct from the other, and usually requires several seconds to become clear. Examples of this are in John Chowning's Stria and Michael McNabb's Dream Song. The harmonic partials of a tone create an interval pattern above the fundamental known as the harmonic series. To clarify the relation between these and equally tempered pitches, which is what we normally use in music, I would like to explain the octave point pitch class, or 8VE point PC method of notating pitches, which is used in Music 4B, Music 4BF, Music 360, Music 11, and C sound synthesis programs. The pitch of middle C is near the frequency of 2 to the 8th, or 256 Hertz, and the frequencies of the 12-tone equally tempered scale can be generated by raising 2 to the power of the octave plus n12th, where n is the semitone above C that you want. The result is then multiplied by 1.02197949, which brings the A above middle C to 440 Hertz, which is the standard used in the United States. Some European countries use slightly higher frequencies. For example, you would produce C sharp above middle C by taking 2 to the 8th, 2.8.0833 power, which is about 271.22, and multiply that by 1.02197949, which produces 277.18 Hertz. In 8VE point PC, the pitch of middle C is 8.00, and each successive semitone is raised by 0.01. A440 would be 8.09. C above middle C would be 9.00, and the value of 8.12 would also work. The lowest note on the piano would be 4.09, and the highest 12.00. Fractions of semitones are possible, such that 8.005 would denote a quarter note between C and C sharp. The main difference between octave point pitch class and the usual notation is the octaves are numbered 4 higher. But this has the advantage that it provides a notation for subsonic and supersonic frequencies. This notation also works for intervals, where 1.00 represents the octave, 0.07 the fifth, 2.07 would be 2 octaves and a fifth. Now we can get a pretty good idea of where the partials lie in relation to the tempered scale. The following table on the screen shows the intervals above the fundamental where the first 32 harmonic partials lie. As you can see, octaves are perfectly in tune, and the perfect fifths 3, 6, 12, 24. Major seconds, 9th partial, minor third, 19th partial, are 2%, 4%, and 2% away from their equally tempered pitches. The major thirds, 5th, 10th partials, are 14% flat. Minor sevenths, 7th and 14th partials, are 31% flat. The major 7th, 15th partial, 12% flat. The minor 6th, 27th partial, 6% sharp. But these are also within 1/10 of a semitone of their tempered counterparts. The one that is most out of tune is the tritone, 6 semitones above the note. The 11th partial, a little more than halfway between the perfect fourth, 49% flat, and the 23rd partial is about 28% sharp. This is one of the reasons why this note was so out of tune with medieval instruments, and the interval was referred to as the devil in music. Now we can get back to frequency shifting and how it works. In frequency shifting, a constant value is added or subtracted to all the harmonic partials of a tone, which preserves their differences but not their ratios, thus creating inharmonic partials. Frequency shifting has different consequences if the frequencies are shifted up or down. Shifting frequencies up causes the partials to be shifted into an area where they span a larger interval than the natural harmonics originating from that note, but not as large as the harmonics of the shifted pitch. The example on the screen should clarify this. The first 10 partials of 261 go up to 2610, and the first 10 of 361 go up to 3610. But the shifted partials go from 361 to 2710, a considerably smaller span. And there is no common denominator of these frequencies. Shifting partials down causes the partials originally spanning a wider range to start from a lower level. For example, shifting the first 10 partials of 1,000 hertz, which would go up to 10,000 hertz, down to 100 hertz, subtracting 900 from each of the partials, would produce 100, 1100, 2100, 3100, etc., up to 9100. Whereas the harmonics of 100 hertz would only go as high as 1000, as shown in the table on the screen. Turning now to pitches of the partials produced by frequency shifting, let us suppose that we take a ratio of 19 to 24, which amounts to about a major third, equivalent to the distance between the 19th and the 24th partial. Remember that the partials follow the harmonic series so that the pitches would be an octave plus a fifth, 2 octaves, etc. higher. If we start from the pitch 5.00 C1, the pitches we obtain would be 5.00, 5.101, 6.0433, 6.09, 7.007, 7.0372, and so on up to 8.0335 for the first 12 harmonics. This means that the 12th partial, instead of being 8.07, has been shifted down about 3.65 semitones. For another example, let us choose the ratio of 15 to 24, which is approximately a minor sixth, the difference between the 15th and the 24th partials. If we start from the pitch 7.02, D3, the pitch series we obtain would be 7.02, 7.104, 8.04, 8.8082, 8.1169, 9.02, etc., up to 11.0173. The 24th partial, which in the harmonic series would be at about 11.09, has been shifted down by about a bit more than the perfect fifth. Frequency shifting was originally produced by a device available in some old electronic music studios called a Klangumwandler, or frequency shifter. Similar sounds were created by ring modulation, which produced sum and difference frequencies by multiplying two tones together. In fact, the frequency shifter worked by generating ring modulation and then suppressing the upper or the lower sidebands. One problem with these devices was they just produced a big jumble of tones and people didn't know what to do with them. In computer music, we can produce frequencies individually and we can control them separately. But this is a lot of work for the composer and he has to think about what to do with them. The advantage that I see in frequency shifting is that it creates a spectrum analogous to a harmonic spectrum, except that the partials are not harmonics, but they can be treated like harmonics. In my harmonic fantasies, which I describe as overtone music, I use overtone melodies to mirror the harmony of the individual passage. I've done the same kind of thing in my frequency shifted inharmonic fantasies. I will use my inharmonic fantasy number 10 for piano and fixed media to illustrate the way that this works. The ratio used in this piece is 11 to 24, so the components are squeezed into about 45% of the space occupied by the harmonic partials. The fundamental of the frequency shifted partials is between a minor and a major ninth below, more than an octave. And the addition of a musical instrument complicates the picture because any instrument playing tones just consists of harmonic partials. In most cases, the instrument is playing the fundamental of the sound or the lowest one of the components. The fact that this intensifies the component is not a drawback at all, but it also makes this an unusual situation for a solo performer who is now playing just a component of a complex sound without the chance to add some personal stylistic interpretation. In the middle of the piece, the piano plays some of the inharmonic partials, but only those which are actually close to tempered pitches. Now to give some examples of this process. One of the early examples in the piece uses the notes A, 4.09, the lowest note on the piano, G sharp, 5.08, nearly an octave above, and B, 6.11 above that. And these three notes create the harmony 0-1-3. Example 1 plays a single tone, G sharp, with harmonic partials, which creates the harmony with the partials 16, 17, 19, and octaves below. This makes up the beginning of the sound. Notice how the harmony infuses the beginning of the sound. And only after a few seconds do you hear the fundamental emerge. I encourage you to listen to example 1 more than once to hear how the harmony is reinforced by the harmonics. Example 2 plays the same sound with inharmonic partials. The effect is quite similar, with the components emerging in the same way, but the fundamental does not appear. Instead, what remains is something of a cluster. Example 3 plays the short passage with these three notes as they occur in the piece, but without the piano. I think you can hear how the sound infuses the passage. Next is an example of a 4-note harmony, this time 0-2-5-8, also known as the half diminished 7th chord. Example 4 plays just a single tone, G sharp below middle C with harmonic partials. The overtones that bring this out are 16, 18, 21, 26, and the lower octaves. The 16th partial, where this sound begins, is 4 octaves above the fundamental. So the sound starts from the highest G sharp on the piano and extends above the highest note on the piano by the time it gets to the 21st partial. So this sound is definitely high. Example 5 plays the same sound with inharmonic partials. And example 6 plays the passage where these notes occur. The notes are E, G sharp, B flat below middle C, and C sharp above it. Now we turn to an example where individual overtones are attacked separately. Example 7 plays the 3-note chord of a major triad by beginning with all the overtones that create that chord. Notice that even though the individual overtones do not last very long, the sense of pitch still comes through. Since this sound uses the first 24 partials, this is followed by a transposition of the chord and then the remaining partials. Example 8 plays the same chord with inharmonic partials. And example 9 plays the entire passage where this occurs. The notes are the lowest C in the piano, 5.00, G an octave and a fifth above that, 6.07, and E an octave and a third above middle C, 9.04. These 3 notes span over 4 octaves. Finally, a more complicated passage. Example 10 plays a note with the harmony 014689, with harmonic partials attacked individually. The partials attacked first are 16, 17, 20, 22, 26, and 27. The note is the lowest G sharp on the piano, 5.08. Example 11 plays the same note with inharmonic partials. Example 12 plays the passage where this occurs. 24 partials are used for each of these notes, so there are a lot of tones being played. Now we will listen to a performance of the piece with my son Jonathan playing the piano. This performance is also at YouTube on the link shown on the screen.